Hello, most awesome one. I am Ahyiana Angel, your host of the Switch Pivot or Quit podcast. And welcome if you have never joined us before. Welcome back if you are familiar with us in this space that we hold for each other. I am so excited that you have decided to drop into this conversation today because I have a good one for you. But first, let me let you know why you're here. This is a space where we have candid conversations helping you to get the courage and the clarity that you need to enter into your next chapter in life, whatever that may be, whatever that may look like. And so today, we're going to be speaking with a certified women's career and life transition coach. Her name is Kavita Ahuja, and she is the founder of It's My Time Now Coaching. And she's also the host of a popular podcast called the Midlife Reinvention. She specializes in helping women navigate those significant life transitions by guiding them to help them align their next season in life with their strengths, with their passions, and Kavita's compassionate approach helps women transform uncertainty into opportunity. Let's get into this conversation with Kavita. Kavita, welcome to the Switch Pivot or Quit podcast.
Thank you. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to be here. It's really a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So your coaching practice is called It's My Time Now. Can you share what led you to create this platform and what that name represents for you and the women that you work with?
That's a great question. I think, thanks for asking. It's My Time Now is really about the fact that, why are we waiting? Why do we wait in our lives to create what we know is inside of our hearts? Oftentimes we kind of go through life, sometimes with blinders on maybe, or kind of like we kind of fall into things, and then 20 years later it's like, oh my goodness, am I really happy with what I'm doing? Or am I as fulfilled as I should be? So the reason I chose this name, and I think it really resonated with me and a lot of people, is it really is your time now to really rediscover who you are, what you want, and really how to get there, especially as you go through transitions in life, whether they're career or other life transitions. So it's really, we don't want to look back at our life with regret. So the time aspect of it, I think, was really important for me to bring across, especially for the women who are listening, who might be like, oh, I'm not sure. I don't know what the next, I know one of your questions is focusing on helping people answer the question, what's next, right? So I think the time element is super important because, we have the time now to really figure it out. So we should take the opportunity.
You've mentioned and you've shared about your story and your transitions, and I would love to find out, first of all, what was your transition journey and getting into doing the work that you're doing now? And did you have any fears around making a huge transition like you did?
Oh my God, I had so many fears, and I still do every day. I'm sure you do too, right? Yeah, thank you. My transition, I was in the pharmaceutical industry for almost 25 years. I'm Indian and I live in Canada, and I grew up here. And so I was in the pharmaceutical industry, as a science degree, a business degree, and it just seemed natural to go into that. And it was great when it was great, and progressively senior roles, was doing really well, enjoyed it, it allowed a lot of comfort and stability in my life, right? Mm-hmm. Around the time I turned 50, however, there was something inside of me that switched, I guess, and I began to question, as I'm sure many of your listeners may also have that feeling. It doesn't have to be at 50, but can be any time in your life when you kind of question, is this it? Is this what I really want to do for the rest of my life? Is what I'm doing right now really utilizing all of my passions, all of my strengths? And the answer was really no, right? So it took me a while. It took me at least 2 years before, when the start of that voice kind of started in my inside, and then I actually left because of those fears that you were talking about. Like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What are people going to think of me? All the judgment pieces is because I was just so used to doing this, and I was successful from the outside, and from the inside, though, things were different. So those fears were definitely there, but the voice grew so loud that I just really couldn't ignore it anymore, and that's when I decided to leave. And then I realized that there's so many other people who are going through these transitions in life who kind of just ignore those signals, you know? And I wanted to dig deep into that, and I was like, why do we have these triggers? What is a transition really? How can I help people successfully navigate these transitions and really understand their why? And I believe when you understand your why, then the transition that you're making in your career and your life, the changes that you make after that really stick. So a long answer to your question, but that's kind of how the transition, how I transitioned into becoming a coach and a podcaster myself. I wanted to hear other women's stories of how they transitioned in their lives, and what did they learn, what kind of fears did they have, and what challenges did they face. So it's been really rewarding, and it's just, it's what I encourage people to do if they have that voice in inside of them to not wait.
So on one hand, you mentioned how, you have the pressures around you, right? Mm-hmm. And the expectations externally, and people think like, oh, your life is amazing. It looks amazing. You did all the things you were supposed to do. How did you grapple with, or did you have to grapple with, maybe letting people down? And how, how did that feel, especially culturally? We know from the outside what culturally a lot of Indian parents expect, a lot of African parents expect, Asian parents, like we know culturally there's a high expectation. And so did you worry about that at that point in your life, or was that burn so big that you said, hey, it doesn't matter what other people expect?
That's a great question. I think it was a bit of both, to be honest. Like you said, being, Indian, I was always raised with the traditions, expectations of, get a good education, get a good job, get married, have kids. And I followed that really to a T, right? And, but, if I think about like, why do our parents put those expectations on us? And that's because they just want us to be safe. They want us to be successful, right?
Right.
And that's the same thing that happens internally, is that when you start thinking about doing something new, we have these inner critics in our brain going, no, you can't do that. And that's trying to keep us safe. Mm-hmm. So I think the answer to that is I listened to that for a while, and I lived my life according to those kind of expectations for a long time. But when that inner guidance, I would say, overtook that expectation, and that I wanted to really understand who I was, regardless of the outside expectations, that's when it took over. But I was lucky in that, at first my family was like, well, why would you do this? Because you're doing really well. Everything's great. Why are you rocking the boat? Even my closest friends would say that, so that was a bit tough, but they were not, but I have to tell you, at the end, they were supportive, and my immediate families I had just had a podcast, my 200th episode, and I was talking about this when my kids and my husband, we went on a vacation, and they asked me, what do you really want, Mom?
Wow.
What do you really want? And that just it just opened up so much for me. It's like, they're so supportive. And so I would say that, the lesson there is that you can do things. It's important to have that support system. Whether you get it from immediate people around you or you look for it in communities or groups, it's really important. So, you can't ignore people around you, but you have to still be able to follow your voice and your guidance. Yeah. Does that make sense? Or
Absolutely. And I just love the way that your children questioned you in such a thoughtful way, and that's a testament obviously to your parenting, right? But how many kids would say like, Mom, what do you really want? Like, I feel like that question is enough to like break someone down.
Oh, well, I just literally cried in my last episode when I was recalling it because it was really true. I remember it was like, they're like, because I was going on, I was, deciding what to do. And they said, okay, let's just spend the next 2 hours, like take out a book. This is really what happened. Take out a book, a notebook, and let's just like brainstorm all the things you could do. I'm like, you boys are like incredible,
Yeah.
So,
Oh my God. How old were they at this time?
oh, like early 20s.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That is just so like caring.
I
And
know, I know.
I feel like that probably is something that if more people had that, they would be more energized to do the things that they want to do, because so many of us just want to be seen and heard and understood, and someone taking out the time to say, hey, let's work on you and let's workshop what you want to do next. I can't think of a better way to feel
Yeah.
like seen and heard and understood and loved. Oh, I just love your kids.
I love him too. And
Amazing.
actually, now that you say that, it's so interesting. I never really thought of it this way, and this just came into my mind, is that they let me be seen and heard, and now this is what I'm doing for others, and what you're doing for others. Isn't it the truth? That's what people want. People just want to be seen and heard and understood.
Yeah, so
Don't you
deeply.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What's one of the things that in doing this work now for the past, what has it been, like 5 years?
5 years, yeah.
Yeah, for the past 5 years, what's one of the things that's really stood out to you in doing the work with all of these women? Is it something that you learned, or is it something that you were surprised to understand about this work and this process? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I was surprised at how common some of the challenges are with so many women. And a lot of women, okay, I mean, most of the women who come to me, they just come because they're feeling very stuck. They're feeling very overwhelmed. They're very accomplished. They're really smart. They really have a lot of experience, a lot of great things, but they don't actually recognize how great they are. It's really like they are so amazing, but they don't recognize it. So I think that's one of the things that I see very common, and I think the most rewarding part of this work, and I don't know, I'm sure you have agree with me, is being able to really put a spotlight on somebody's life and say how great, bring out their strengths, help them uncover what they're really passionate about, and help them really uncover their why. And when they uncover their why, then they can make plans for the future. And it's kind of like a transformational process where it's like you can see the person like lighting up when it's like, oh my God, yeah, that's actually what I really want to do. And then it's like that whole process, it's like that's the first part of it. And then the next part is like, how do I actually bring that out into the world, right? I think it's the transformational process that is the most rewarding thing, is when you go through and you have somebody who shines a light again on you. It gives you the time and space to really understand who you are. I think that's the power of coaching, where you have somebody who's also an accountability. It's like, okay, well, you said you're going to do this. Now we've figured out what you're going to do, like how are you going to do it, and I'm going to, keep you accountable for that. So I think that would be the most rewarding thing.
Yeah. I would love for you to share one of the stories maybe of, I guess you don't have to be specific, but a journey that has stayed with you that someone had.
One of my most recent clients, it's really interesting because, like, how I said, some women come in, they're feeling stuck and they're overwhelmed and often even burnt out, right, from what they're doing. So this particular client of mine, she is brilliant. She's a brilliant scientist. She has 2 PhDs, and she has this perfect job that people from the outside would be like, oh my God, this is like the dream job, right? And she also felt that way, right? Or she feels that way. And so she's been in this job for 20 plus years. And however, I think as time goes by, she, how you just kind of continue in work and you don't question it. And then she also became burnt out because of the work, But deeper than that, she wasn't tapping into what she really wanted to do, what she really was inside her heart. So as we work through this, the process of finding what I call what the term is the ikigai, or your reason for being, we uncovered her strengths were pretty, easy to identify because she's a scientist, she's a researcher, she's brilliant, analytical, all of that. When it came to uncovering her passions, she realized that she hadn't really, one of her greatest passions is music and art, and she did that when she was a kid, and she had dabbled in it a little bit in the last few years, but that was her real passion. And the other thing is she really valued educating young girls, because she has a daughter herself, on the value of STEM education and bringing creativity into that. So all these things kind of blended into, like, she's like, oh my God, I can do this, I can do this. She started a YouTube channel. She started painting again. She sold her paintings at the local, the library, and she's displayed them, and she started teaching this instrument to her daughter's class. And she said that, oh my God, Kavita, like the energy, I'm just a different person. Like the energy, the positive energy that has been released, just as a result of me bringing this into my life, has transferred into my work. And that now I'm like, my work and my relationships are better. So it's not about always giving up everything, right? It's about understanding and rediscovering what's inside of you already. So That's just one example of like digging into what you might have buried in your heart, or you haven't done, and just uncovering that.